You're a smart, ambitious woman. You have so many depending on you to keep life running on schedule and get the important things done. But you've wondered if you could have your own thing, a business that gives you a new creative outlet, is profitable, and will not overtake your family. I'm Amy Robles, your guide in this process to create the business you love, keep your family first, and shine. Because you can enrich your life and your bottom line. Welcome to Think Enriched. Hey, welcome to this episode of Think Enriched. I'm so delighted to have you here. It's the holiday season. There's goodwill in the air, and I can just see how there's a lot of times where we're so busy doing the next thing, planning the next thing, making sure that things are organized. Then we got to pick up this and run here, and then we've got to make sure that this is done, and then we've delivered this, and then make that call and do the things. We are just in it, one thing after another. And today we've got an interview with my friend Jon Stolpe, and he is an incredible human being and has done something extraordinary. But let me tell you a little bit about him. He's an operation manager for a construction firm out in the Philly area, Philadelphia. He has passion for his family, leadership development, missions, and personal growth. And he has this heart for providing homes and hope to widows and orphans in Guatemala. And the first time he started talking about this, I was like, what are you doing here? I need to hear more. What's going on? And this happened a few years ago, and I've just seen how this one thing has progressed a little bit more and a little bit more. And now he has founded and he leads and helps men across the country improve their life in their family, their faith, their financial situation, a whole broad approach. And he does this through his stretched men's group. And that's something, we'll talk about a little bit later. All of this are things that we're going to cover in this episode. And the more I learn from him, the more I see his plate is very full. I've heard him say a couple of times, I'd love to do one more thing. I just don't have the bandwidth. And I know that you and I have felt just like that. There are times where we just don't know how we can do it. I'm really happy that we had this interview and had a couple of minutes to learn more about what's working for him and how he's making a tremendous difference and working to become extraordinary. I want that for you. Here we go. Okay, today I am delighted to have on the show one of the people that has been kind of a shining light, a legend, someone that keeps me on my toes in the blogging sphere and has just really been an inspiration. Hey, welcome to the show, Jon Stolpe.
Hey, Amy, it is such an honor and privilege to be on your show. And I'm excited for our conversation here today. Should be fun.
Really good. Jon and I, just so a little back up, we met through a mastermind group, learning, growing, progressing, and I was just getting started in the space, I felt, and I had a lot of energy and enthusiasm, but I didn't really know the structure or anything. And Jon had all of this knowledge and had 15 big projects going on, and he would just come back with one more new thing and what he's learned and how he's taking that and making one more new thing. Have you always been like that, or is this just a recent thing?
No, I've probably always been like that. I was a firstborn. I've got two younger brothers, and I think my brothers are great. They're doing wonderful things, but I've always been the achiever, the high achiever, having to have my hands in a lot of different things. And I guess that has carried over to adulthood, so I'll go with that. I'm thankful. Actually, if you've done the Strength Finders survey, achiever is one of my 5 top strengths.
Wow. That's great. Do you remember your number one top strength?
It was either that or that's a good question. I don't remember. I remember a few of them. I know I was somebody who liked to keep harmony. So I was somebody who brought harmony. I was a responsible person. I think you wouldn't be surprised by this, but discipline was one of the ones that was up there as well. And I'm forgetting one. You put me on the spot there, but
That's
I remember
awesome.
Achiever was probably my first or second one on the list.
Incredible. So you have been blogging. I remember at one time you said you had over 800 posts that you had written and published out to the world. Any idea where you are now?
That is a great question. I don't know for sure. I'm sure it's over 1,000, I would imagine. I've been blogging for 10 and a half years.
Wow.
So it's been a while, and it comes and goes. I wish I could say that I've been as consistent recently as I would like to be. But the reality is life gets in the way and you get some other projects going, and sometimes your blogging takes a backseat. I've had a couple posts this week, so that's not bad. But there was a time where I was literally blogging every single day, during Sunday through Saturday, every day.
And did you enjoy that more, or do you enjoy less?
Yes, I think there was part of it that I enjoyed more because of the consistency. Mm-hmm. It was kind of like I had my 20 or 30 minutes or 40 minutes where I was tapping into a side of my brain that I don't always get the chance to tap into, a creative side. For those of you listening, I'm an engineer by background, and I love math and science. I've always loved math and science. But there's something else in there somewhere in my brain that likes to do things that are a little more creative. So the blogging world has allowed me to tap into that. And since I started blogging, I've had a chance to meet a lot of different people, but I've also expanded into speaking. I've had the opportunity to speak at a number of really cool venues over the past few years. And I've also had the chance to do things like this, where I've had the chance to interview with such incredible people like Amy Robles.
That was sweet. You took it full circle. Nice job, buddy. No, I'm just joking. You have, from this, it's all about stretching yourself, making yourself better and improving. And from that, you started this men's group. It's so different than anything I've heard anybody else doing. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, you mentioned stretch, so let me just give you a little bit of background about that first of all. So my blog is called Jon Stolpe Stretched. If you look up Jon Stolpe and you go to the page, it'll say Stretched or Jon Stolpe Stretched up at the top. I was 5'6" when I started my junior year of high school, and then I grew to the point where I'm almost 6'6". I'm not quite, but I'm just a quarter inch short of 6'6". So I really stretched physically. But that stretching, unfortunately, has stopped vertically, and I'm trying to prevent the stretch from my horizontal path. And I'm trying to keep from being shorter than my son, but I'm afraid I have failed at that because he recently passed me. But at any rate, stretching for me is a metaphor for life. It is something where I believe that if we're not really stretching and if we're not really growing, we're not really living the life that we were meant to live. And Amy, you actually were part of the very beginning of the Stretched Men group, because I was talking in that very mastermind group that you mentioned a few minutes ago about men who were coming to me and asking for me to be their mentor. And I was struggling, if you remember the conversation, I was struggling with how do I impact these men when I really don't have the time to spend one-on-one with each one of these men who had come to me and talked to me. And through our conversation, there was an encouragement that kind of flowed through our talk and our discussion about, why don't you try doing a mastermind group for men? And one thing led to the other, and I launched that trying to think here. I think it was last fall was my first semester of that. So I do it in semesters. And it's like a 3-month commitment where men sign up, and the goal is to help men stretch, help them take that one next step that they need to take to become better husbands, to become better fathers, to become better leaders, to become better men. And it has been remarkable. So in the 3 semesters that I've done that so far, it's been remarkable to see the transformation that has happened as a result of our time together once every other week. We get together once every other week for an hour or hour and a half, and it's late at night my time. I know you're 3 hours earlier than I am there on the West Coast, but we've had a couple guys from the West Coast. We had a gentleman from the state of Washington who was in the group for a little while. We had somebody from California, but we've also have East Coasters as well, and we get together. Right now we're meeting on Thursday nights, every other Thursday. And guys are bringing up issues in their marriages, issues in their parenting and with their kids. They're bringing up issues in their employment and finding that next step in their career path. And it has been really encouraging to be part of that conversation, part of that dialogue, part of the encouragement that these men need to discern what that next step needs to be in their area of concentration.
And do you feel like they're coming to you because of your blogging, or how are they connecting? How are they finding you?
It's a mix. I've had some people who I never knew before who have contacted me because they heard about it through somebody else, either somebody through my social media /blog connections. There's been a couple connections through that initial mastermind group that you and I were in. And then a couple of them are just word of mouth. Like I'm in a Toastmasters group, and I shared about it at one of my speaking opportunities at Toastmasters. And a couple months later, one of the guys in the group reached out to me and said, "Hey, I'd really like to know more about that Stretch Men group." And somehow it fills up.
That is fascinating. Give us an example of some kind of progress that you've seen from that group.
For one, I mean, I will tell you that I teach for the first 10 or 15 minutes of each session. And I don't hide the fact when I'm sharing with the guys or introducing the group to potential members that I'm coming at it from a faith perspective. I'm not going to try to jam my faith down your throat, but some of the teaching or conversation that might happen is from a faith-based perspective. And so one of the guys in the group actually made a decision to take his family to church. And, that was a pretty cool thing to watch happen. Actually, the same guy recently made a job change as a result of conversations we've had in the group. So there's some opportunities for some big changes amongst the people who step up and join the group.
Oh, that's fantastic. So neat to see you're taking that and helping in the role of fatherhood and family. And it's not just focused completely on work or completely on just the faith in your life, the full expression and experience of what life is. And I've seen a lot of focus on becoming a good father, but we really haven't seen any of that for motherhood. Why do you think that is?
That's maybe because moms have already arrived, and I am joking, but I have an awesome wife, and I learned so much from her, and I know that she actually has a much better network of girlfriends that she is plugged into locally and from college and things like that. And my hunch is that women tend to be more social creatures in general. So there's a natural tendency or ability on their part to be able to plug in more naturally than guys. So that may be part of it. Honestly, I think part of it too is that there are a lot of moms out there who are working their butts off, and they do not get the credit that they deserve, but they are trying to keep food in the pantry and in the refrigerator. They're trying to keep the house somewhat in order. They're trying to keep the kids' schedules and taxi service from one event to another, going at the right pace, and they're taking care of their husbands often as well. So, women, I think, could they benefit from something like this? Absolutely. But I'm wondering if some of it is that they're just already maxed out in what they're doing.
Fascinating. I hadn't thought of that, but just listening to you and seeing how this has grown and how you have helped a lot of people, it sounds like around the country. Incredible just to be able to be part of that and see how you're changing lives all around you. And that brings us to, not only are you focused on helping men become and stretch and become the best of themselves, that you have actually written the next book in your series and sharing with the whole world about Rooftop Reflections. Great title, by the way. Fill me in. Let's talk about that.
So you know this, but your listeners don't know this. I have a huge passion for Guatemala, and that started in 2012 when a friend of mine asked me to go on a missions trip with my daughter and the high school youth group from my church. And I was terrified to go, to be quite honest with you. I did not want to leave my wife and my son here so far away. And there really was a leap of faith decision after talking to my wife and talking to my extended family and some friends and getting their counsel. And one thing led to the other. My blog actually paid for me to go to Guatemala that first year and then paid to build a house there in Guatemala. And so when I went there, So
let's just explain that a little bit more. Your blog paid for it? You had donations? Or what do you mean by that?
Yeah, great question. So I had donations. When I made the decision to go, it was late April of 2012. And the trip was either late June or early July. So I had a very short period of time to pull together funds.
Wow.
And the cost of the trip was fairly reasonable. I think it was $1,250 or something like that. But when I made the decision to go, I really believed that that maybe there was something more, that my blog was supposed to help in contributing to the trip. And so I posted, right after I posted about the decision to go, I posted a big ask. And I said, hey guys, I don't know how this is going to happen. I don't know what the deal is, but I feel called to, for one, ask if you'd like to step up and help me with this. And I'd like to ask for $5,000 for something bigger. And I don't know what that is yet, but we'll figure that out. Well, within 6 hours of posting that, I got a phone call from a college friend who I hadn't talked to in over 15 years. And he said, John, my wife and I have been waiting for an opportunity like this, and we would like to step up and give you that money for your trip and for that big ask, that $5,000. So within 6 hours, that came together. If that's not confirmation that I should have been going, I'm not sure what is.
I got chills. I have chills just hearing that.
And then So I called up our youth pastor and I told him, and he was like, whoa, okay. Now let's figure out what we can do with that. So within a couple hours, he got back to me and he said, we're going to build a house with that money, but we need about $3,000 more. I said, all right, well, let me see what I can do. So by the time we were ready to go, I had raised another $3,000 by asking again. And it was really incredible. The building experience for me was remarkable. I mean, I love to build with my hands, and I don't get to do that on a daily basis. But it was neat to be able to do that. It was neat to be able to help the teenagers on the trip and to watch my daughter, who was an incoming freshman at the time, freshman in high school, and to watch her maturity and watch her work and watch her in action. But that day that we dedicated that first house that year, we built one house that year, but the day we dedicated the house, I can remember being wrecked. I don't know if you've ever read Jeff Goins' book, Wrecked. But,
I've looked into it since you've mentioned it. That's on my list.
He he talks about the experience of being wrecked for something good. And I remember eating lunch, and I could hardly eat lunch. I was emotionally feeling the effects of the day. I had clearly been moved by my time there, and we still had a week left in Guatemala. But those connections I made that first year, that first trip, led my family to go back again. And the following year, I took my wife and my son and my daughter back to the same village, just our family. And we had the chance to plug in there, introduce my wife and my son to the community. And the following year, we built a couple houses there. And then the year after that, we built 3 houses. And our 2016 trip is really what is documented in the book Rooftop Reflections.
And that's the goal, is 2, 3, sounds like 6 houses now that you've created for families. Who are these houses for?
We are targeting primarily widows. In Guatemala, kind of the socio pyramid or totem pole, if you're Hispanic, you're higher up on the totem pole. If you're, if you're a certain wealth class, you're obviously higher up on the totem pole. If you are Mayan, if you're native to that area, you're lower on the pole. And if you are a widow, you're at the bottom. You're at the absolute bottom of the totem pole. And so these widows really need somebody to kind of just give them a boost. And, our goal isn't to come in here and just give out a handout. I'd really like to be able to provide a stepping stone for them that would be a catalyst for them to sustain their families and, just maybe have that shelter or that bed in their home that they wouldn't normally have had, that will allow them to take that next step in helping other people, in developing a skill that will allow them to buy groceries, allow them to pay for the things that they need to. I have a lot of different dreams and goals related to Guatemala, but one of my goals is to build 100 houses there before I die. And that's
yourself?
Well, in some way, I may not put the nail in every house, but I'd somehow like to be part of building 100 houses there. And It may be that I'm fundraising for that. It may be that I'm building teams that will make that happen. I'm not sure what that looks like yet. That's kind of the next step in my journey as I look to build a strategic advisory board to kind of provide some wisdom and guidance to that. But it's not just about building 100 houses. It's impacting families one at a time. And it's figuring out a way to bring the community in to make it happen. So I want to have locals building alongside of us so that they learn skills, so that they use the skills that they have to improve their own communities. And then maybe it's an opportunity to grow their skills so that they can get paid to use that skill elsewhere and make more money for their families that will put food on their table and provide more appropriate housing and things like that. So those are some of the things that are spinning around in my head as I think about Guatemala. And as you read the book, you'll get to see or experience some of those thoughts as they twist and turn through my head.
I think that's what surprised me as I was going through and reading, and just little by little. First, it was more your story and the feelings and how, and then I felt like I knew these people, and seeing their picture and seeing where they were building and what they were doing, and the car you rode around in, that was terrifying. Like, so shocking just to see the quality of life. And I can see how in a social structure that is already in a totally different system than what we live in and what we appreciate every single day, and then to be at the bottom of this totem pole, I can just see, and I felt my heart I fell in love with these women. I could see little families and their little ones. There is so much good that all of us can do. And so what is it that you want or need from the people that are listening right now?
Well, obviously, I'd love it if people would pick up a copy of the book. It just came out December 5th, and I'd love to get the word out about the book. That's a simple thing that can be done. If you're a person of prayer, I would challenge you to pray for the people in Xenico. Santo Domingo Xenico is where we've done most of our building. You could also pray for direction for our family as we decipher and discern what we should be doing next down that path. The other thing is, if you go to my site that is set up for the book, rooftopreflections.com, towards the bottom, you're going to get to read a lot of cool endorsements from people who read the book, and you'll get to learn more about me on that page. But there are two buttons at the bottom of that page, and one of the buttons is I'd like to go on a trip to Guatemala sometime. And it's just a chance for me to collect your name. And I don't know when that next trip is going to be, but if you're interested in going and taking your family, I'd like to help facilitate that and make that happen. There's also a button on the website if you'd like to give to help make more houses possible. Now, there's a couple of different figures out there, and you'll be shocked at this, but most of the houses that we have built cost somewhere between $2,000 and $3,000 a piece.
Wow. The whole house?
The whole house. We did build a house this past year, and it cost about $4,500. Ultimately, I'd like to be able to build more of a house of that model because I think that it's a better build. But so somewhere between I say $2,500 to $5,000, we can build a brand new house for a family in Guatemala. And the house is not like what you live in or what I live in. It's very different. And they don't need some of the things that we have. They live in a climate that is pretty moderate most of the year. But their houses are about the size of my family room. And they put 4, 5, 6, 8 people in there. And your perspective changes a lot when you go there and see how excited they are to get a house like that. And I think that's one of the things I've enjoyed about going. Enjoyed might not be the right word, but I've appreciated about going is that we always come back recalibrated. You think that we are going to impact them, but in reality, our trips to Guatemala have impacted us. Maybe as much or more than we've impacted them. Our family has been extremely recalibrated. So after the 2016 trip, my wife and I were in the airport in Guatemala, and our kids were walking through the airport, kind of experiencing some of the pseudo-American stuff that was in the Guatemala City airport. And we sat there over lunch before we got on the plane. And we decided we were going to put our house up for sale. We had been talking about downsizing, but we knew that it was important for us to do something more by making it more possible from our own standpoint, getting rid of the huge house that we have, getting rid of some of the junk that we have, and providing more margin in our finances to live, give, and save. And I'd like to be able to tell you that plan worked perfectly, but we ran into a roadblock with our house sale, and I'm trusting that will work itself out here in the next year or two, where we'll be able to put it back on the market again and sell it. But we are purposefully looking for ways to more effectively use our finances so that we can be part of the solution down there.
Wow.
So that's part of the recalibration that we have experienced in our family. And that's probably just the tip of the iceberg.
Oh, my word. So is it only Guatemala that you're looking at? Is it only this one village, or you want to build from there? Why Guatemala?
I think it's hard to explain. I mean, there are obviously tons of places in the world that need this kind of help. Our son was in the Dominican Republic this summer, and he got to build a house there. And I'm sure there was great need there. And I've been to other places that have that great need. We can't fix everything. And right. I think it's Andy Stanley talks about doing for one what you wish you could do for everyone. And I think that is part of the message I'm trying to get across through my book, because I'm just an ordinary guy. I work in corporate America. I've got a rich man's family, as they say. I've got a wife and two kids, a boy and a girl. At the time I wrote this, I had a black lab. He's no longer with us. But, I'm just a normal, ordinary guy. And I could be content with that, or I could decide that I want my life to be extraordinary. And being extraordinary could mean going to Guatemala and doing something amazing there. But it doesn't just have to be there. And this is really something I hope that people get out of the book. You can be extraordinary right where you live, with the people you rub shoulders with every day. Whether it's a simple conversation with somebody who just needs a friend, or whether it's doing something a little more intentional by taking your kids to a nursing home to serve, or to spend time with the residents, or to go to a soup kitchen in the area, or whatever. There are so many things right in front of you where you can serve and you can do something extraordinary that will have an impact on you and will have an impact on others as well.
It's fascinating to hear you say that, because that seems to be the lesson that you share in your blog posts. That seems to be kind of the theme of Jon Stolpe in everything I've seen, is doing a little bit better. And I'm making a choice right now, and I'm going to do this, and it's going to make an impact. I think a lot of times we overlook what we can do right here and right now. And so being able to go to an entirely new place and help the people there and come back a new person, I just think that's an extra gift you have been bestowed in your first experience, and also been given to your family, and then been able to share with so many other people around the globe through your blogging and through your videos and through all of the way that you're sharing, especially in this book. It has been a delightful read. So I just wanted to say thank you very much for that.
Well, I appreciate it. It's very encouraging to hear that, because I think that for those who have gone on a missions trip of that caliber, it's not always easy to translate what you experienced and what you went through. And it's kind of like, if you've ever read the Lord of the Rings series or the Hobbit, it's kind of like the hobbits going out into the rest of the world, and then they come back to the village where they live, and the name of that village is escaping me. But at any rate, they can't fully describe what they experienced, and people don't get it. And, I know I may not fully be able to describe that, but if I can give people a glimmer of that, what I've experienced, but also not just what I've experienced, how it's impacted my life and how it could impact your life if you just make that step of doing something for somebody else. I couldn't ask for anything more out of that book.
Incredible. Jon, what's the one thing you want people to know right now from you? The one message from you?
I really want people to know that they're not ordinary. They are extraordinary, and they have an amazing opportunity right in front of them if they open their eyes, if they take a step maybe a little bit outside their comfort zone. That they could have an impact on somebody in a way that will change the world for somebody else, but will also change their world as well. So if you're listening to this, I would encourage you to do something today that is outside that comfort zone, that will cause you to stretch, as I like to say, but will will take you from ordinary to extraordinary. It'll be worth it. Trust me.
Wow. Wow. Excellent. Hey, Jon, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
Isn't he marvelous? Here's what keeps going through my mind is he sees how there are families that are really struggling without a father, especially in this little tiny pocket of the world down in Guatemala. And now he's actually helping men fulfill their role, develop themselves, and become better fathers. In a way, the problem that he was seeing is actually the solution. He's solving both parts of what's happening of the equation. I see that in the way that we work as smart, ambitious women. We see the problem and somehow we go through the regular routine. We're busy. We've taken care of this. But in the wee hours or maybe in the shower while you're washing your hair, you get this idea and you can see how that could solve the problem. That can make an impact and it lights you up. We're going to talk a lot about this. There's a lot of different things. I'm so grateful to Jon Stolpe for being here today and learning from him. Find a way where the problem can also impact the solution. You have that. The part that just stood out to me over and over again as I've been doing the edits, and this has been in the back of my mind, is you do for one what you wish you could do for all. So in this, especially this beautiful holiday season, let us take the time to do for one. Those little teeny tiny things matter. That is important. This is how you and I enrich our lives, get filled up, and have even more to give to those around who depend on us. I hope you have a great week. I'll talk to you soon.